I said, I can no longer do this, Joshua.
Don't make your wife kill herself to live your dreams. Where I couldn't buy food for my son, which was very, very difficult. So I was on the brink of bankruptcy.
My master bedroom actually got flooded and everything was now compromised. I was very scared of the place having some type of mold.
If you can't make it work at home, then it's definitely not going to work in the world. So, happy wife, happy life, or whatever y'all want to say. So
I met this handsome man to be my husband.
if you want to not be a slave to someone else, you make sacrifices, and that was part of what we did. So
Welcome to the JNR Real Podcast. We are so happy you have joined us. Here you can expect everything about real estate, husband and wife working together, financial education, our journey, how we got here, and all resources as to how you can get started with real estate investment, how you can find properties here in Austin, and all things to support your journey. Today's episode is our very first one. It's how real estate changed everything: our marriage, our mindset, and how we treat our finances. Let's get started. Welcome, Joshua.
thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Joshua Gossett. I'm fortunate enough to be Raquel Gossett's husband. We're so excited to have you here with us. We think that we hope to share, our life with you and our experiences, and we hope that they nurture and enrich your life. We look forward to showing how we make decisions, how we work together in our business, even working some of our properties, the experiences that we have, the journey that we walk down, renters, property location, the quantitative and the qualitative pieces of that to hope to share with you. But I think what you'll probably enjoy even more than that is just the interaction. I think the husband and wife business is probably the most interesting part of the things we do, because that's where you really learn, how to make it work. And so if you can't make it work at home, then it's definitely not going to work in the world. So, happy wife, happy life, or whatever y'all want to say. So anyway, thank you so much for your time. We're really grateful that you're here, and we hope to not just be entertaining, but we hope to be educational at the same time. So once again, we look forward to walking with you in this series together.
Wonderful. Well, let me tell you all about myself. I am originally from Fortaleza, Brazil. I've been in the United States for 20 years. I relocated from Boston, Massachusetts about 7 years ago, and have been in Austin, Texas now for this time, where I met this handsome man to be my husband, and together we started investing in real estate. So we'll get to share a lot more about that. And tell us some about you, Joshua.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm really blessed and fortunate to have you as my wife. I moved to Austin in 1997 to go to the University of Texas, and I stayed here the whole time. Obviously, the city has changed quite a bit since the first time that I set foot in Austin in 1997. I think the UT Tower was the tallest building in the city at that time. So have seen the changes and lived through that. But the good Lord has brought us together in a awesome time. And it's not just an awesome time to in Austin, but also an awesome time to have a business together, an awesome time to share the stories together, and just overall invest in real estate together. I think that's and have a business together. So then the different facets of real estate that we work in. So I'm grateful for that. And so, that's my story.
Definitely. I am super grateful that we started this journey. And I'd love to ask you, describe to our audience here, how did God give you the vision that real estate would be the way? How did we start?
Yeah, I think that that's the Bible says a lot of things about investing and a lot of things about being wise and being a good steward. I think the most powerful words that we have, or at least mean to me, is really about slavery. So I know that's a strong word, but in Proverbs it's fairly straightforward. It says the borrower is slave to the lender. That's like our job and all the things that we do. So I think not to be, different people use different terminology like fire and all these other types of things. I think ours was very much centered on being good stewards of the blessings that we'd received, but also then being able to set free so we could live a purpose that was made for us and had put forward for us. So, I mean, really, real estate is just a tool and a vehicle like anything. It's about being wise and about being a good steward and finding and searching and praying a lot. And we always say to us, it's like the God brings the properties, God brings the borrower or the buyers, God brings the renters, the tenants, all of those pieces. So that's a big part of our life. And I think that to know where the source is, it doesn't matter whether it's real estate or life. That's really what it comes down to. On that note, what about you? How is this journey? Like how did you get to this place? I mean, we talked early on, like, you don't just like, you're originally from Brazil, obviously. So, and, we come from two very different cultures and different places when it regards to money, finance, entrepreneurship, all of those pieces. So tell us, why don't you tell the audience about how you got here?
Yeah, definitely. And there's a long story to that. The short of it is when I first got to the States, I had a master's degree within 2 years, and I was working on a farm making $14 an hour with a marketing degree. And quickly I found out that working in corporate America left a taste of I'm only a number. And the day that I'm no longer needed, it's easy for me to be replaced. And back then I was 24 years old, living in Massachusetts, and the Christian church was the only social life that I had. On Sundays, when I went to my manager to say I would like not to work on Sundays anymore so I could be with my church family, they told me I was now a part-time employee. They cut my benefits. And soon after, when the crisis of '08 happened, I lost my job. And I said, how can I find a better way to live life, to thrive, and not depend on these situations? And I started studying books such as The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I got into new jobs and was in technology for about 10 years. And after moving to Austin, now divorced, I had $60,000 in my bank account. And I said, I have to find a way out. I have to find a way to invest my resources. And I studied the book from Tony Robbins called Money Mastered the Game. And I had a chance also to go to California and be part of one of Tony Robbins' events called Unleash the Power Within. And I said, there's a lot more to life than this mindset that I had that was very small, working in corporate life, corporate jobs, and quickly realizing that the rat race was real. And after moving to Austin, I was able to purchase my very first property, realizing real estate was the way, realizing I always wanted to invest in real estate. It was difficult at first because you have to put 20% down on a property when it's an investment one. And so I started with the condo on the east side, and shortly after, I met you.
Yes. So, I mean, you talked about that first purchase experience, but stepping back a little bit, you talked about the corporate America and the move. Talk a little bit about that. How did you no longer work in corporate America. And so tell us about that journey.
Yes, for sure. I did work in corporate America for 20 years here in the United States. The last 10 years, I was in technology. And after I met Joshua, we were able to build a plan where through our investment homes, I could replace my base salary at Amazon and be able to be a manager of our rental properties, to work with our tenants, to really have the supplemental income from those properties. And we created a path. And I could not do that, could not have done that without you, Joshua. And so back then, when we first connected and we spoke about investing in real estate, you said, God gave me a vision. Let's go execute that vision. And here we are, 3.5 years later. Tell me, what did you see then, and what do you see now, where we're headed, and what are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that real estate with me started a long time ago. I mean, I've done multiple flips. I did some pre-08 and in '08, and lost a lot of money doing that. So, I learned the hard way. I bought my first rental property in 2004. And so I had the specific purpose of moving into that property initially. This is kind of pre-house hack and those type of things, and had a roommate paying rent, and went through those journey, raised my son, and saw that there was an opportunity there. Really, I bought that property so when he got to college that I would have the income to pay for his college, because I had to pay and have student loans and things of that nature, and I didn't want that same thing for him. So I knew there was an alternative. As we move forward with our situation, we really got into a place where we had been extremely blessed and fortunate, and that provided an opportunity where it was clear that we had after running the numbers, we had a clear exit that we could accelerate and not work at our day jobs anymore if we really wanted to. And I think we materialized that. And so we picked a number, and that number was how much income we wanted annually. And I reverse engineered the number into the number of properties, the amount of money, and the cash flow and the steps. And so we built a 5-year plan and have been executing that plan ever since. We have had some ups and downs along the way. We've changed and slowed down and sped up and did different things. But I think that fundamentally, when you're trying to move to you're trying to move to working for someone else, and loaning your time for money, which is really what work is. It's you're renting out your time for a paycheck to somebody so they can make money on your time, and changing the mindset into providing a set of income that afforded us the same life, but getting all our time back. And that became very, very straightforward to me. I mean, I'm a spreadsheet and numbers type of person, so the mathematics is really straightforward and easy for me in that regard. So simply work the plan and put your head down and execute. And we made sacrifices to do that. I mean, we still only have one car. I still walk to places, even though we have multiple paid off rental properties. And but that's part of the plan. That's the sacrifice you make if you want to not be a slave to someone else. You make sacrifices, and that was part of what we did. So for me, it's straightforward. We had a plan and we execute. That's really what it is, and it takes determination. And we manage risk. I work. That's what my day job is. I do a lot of management of risk and management of money, and so it works perfect with real estate because it's very, very similar. So long story, but the math worked, and it was very straightforward. I think that the most, I can't take credit for this, but there's no get rich quick. Even when you make a really great income, you have to sacrifice. And there's also not a, quick, I hear, is in this business is 10 years. So I think that's the mindset you have to have when you step in. We were fortunate. You were able to quit. We were able to accumulate enough properties in a relatively short order that you were able to quit your job and move into doing real estate full time. And so I still have some time left in my day job, at least for a while, or unless we change the number. And so that'll dictate the when I get to leave. So,
Certainly. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And we can't wait to share more as to how to do strategy, how to help you get started. What does this really look like in real life? What type of properties? How can you invest small steps into this entire journey we are describing here? We certainly made a lot of sacrifices. We hope you are enjoying this content. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and help our channel. And if you are moving to Austin or Boston, make sure to get in touch with us through the links on the description of this video or reach our website with all resources and information on how to get started with our team serving you in Massachusetts and Texas. And it is true, we used to share one car to date. We did a massive project last year, Remodel, Joshua, and we learned a lot between husband and wife working together, that dynamic. Let's share some about that. What
Well,
can we say up to date? How that has shaped our marriage?
well, maybe so I think there's a lot in what you just said. I think maybe we'll break it down into a couple of bites. So first start, how was your first deal? You talked about buying your condo, and talk about the mindset there for you. And then maybe we can move into when we did our rehab, work, and then we can break this up into a couple different ways. So why don't you start at just I'll call it the first vanilla deal.
Yes, definitely. When I started this journey of buying properties, I had enough accumulated to do a 20% down payment, which is always what we recommend. So you have a better payment and accumulate less fees you have to pay. And of course, there's a lot of dedication and discipline that goes into that. But the process itself can be scary. And even for me, wanting to start and having my own place instead of leasing an apartment, I was still full of fear. Is this the right place? This was right after the pandemic and the snowstorm we had here in Austin, and all of a sudden things changed. I was in a situation where the negotiation was very favorable. And I can tell you, I still felt that fear, that anxiety the day of signing those papers. It's really normal. And today is, in my opinion, one of the best properties we own because of the proximity to Austin downtown, being 10 minutes, and taking that step of faith, of believing that this is the right place. However, I am very detailed when it comes to analyzing the places. To me, it has to be good enough on a rainy day. It has to be good enough at night. The neighborhood evaluation, the place has to be good enough if you needed to sell it in 6 months, if you need to rent it, or if worst comes to worst. And if worse things happen, this is now a place where I would spend the entire rest of my life. If the place can meet all those criteria, I felt safe and I moved forward with that purchase.
Yeah, well, tell me, wasn't there some catastrophic damage that had happened before you closed?
There was.
It was very dramatic.
Yes, with the snowstorm that took place here in Austin, my master bedroom actually got flooded and everything was now compromised, and I was very scared of the place having some type of mold or things that, of course, I was putting in my head so I could walk away from the deal. And it really was the best thing for me to keep along with that deal, and close dates pushed and all. But it was one of the best moves that I made in beginning that journey before I could meet you and us renting out that property.
Yeah, I think so. Being able to overcome that initial anxiety and then going through your roof caving in and pre-closing, and then them having to fix the property to delay closing and then going ahead and closing. I think there's a lot of mindset that goes with that. You know, it's never uh, some of the deals go smooth, but a lot of times they don't. There's a lot of things that go in the middle, and I'm sure we'll share with you along the way more about that as we go into different deals and talk about them individually. So as we fast forward, I think there was another really interesting time, and maybe this was one of our first together deals. What about the house in Uland? What do you think about that? We talked about we talked about our early plan, and to kind of set the stage, Raquel and we were living in downtown Austin, and we were in one of the high-rise buildings together. And we made, as we talked earlier, we talked about the types of sacrifices you're willing to make to be free. And for us, that meant moving from our downtown apartment and going into making a plan to save as much money as we could, and then at the end of our lease, buying whatever we could afford. And so at the time, this was, in starting to get into where the market was really exploding, and the costs of houses were going up fairly substantially. So I'll leave it there. Raquel, tell the audience about I joke and call it everybody has a first apartment. So everybody has the first house they own together, and it's usually the worst house, but it's not the worst house. But kind of talk about that experience that you had and the sacrifice we made.
At first, we thought the perfect plan was we will keep moving to new houses every time we purchase one, and that's okay. We can move every 6 months if needed be. Well, truth comes out after doing that in real life and living outside of 𝐭𝐡, Texas, in a place called Uland, 40 minutes now from downtown, and all of our lives we felt extremely isolated. And 10 months into this experience, I said, I can no longer do this, Joshua. It was Thanksgiving night. I had actually left 𝐭𝐻𝐸𝐻𝐸𝐻 spa hair appointment to be pretty for Thanksgiving, and I came home to you and I said, I am done with this location.
Yeah, I think it, as we talked about, you change strategies, and as a husband and wife together, there's a good lesson in this, which is don't make your wife kill herself to live your dreams. And so we made some alternative sacrifices, and we can talk about that at a different time. But as you talk about, you set a plan, and then you do your best to execute it, and then you modify it along the way to fit your life. And we might be a little more extreme than others when it talks about the lengths we're willing to go to be free in a short time. But that being said, fast forward to last year we did a remodel and on one of our long-term rental properties, and kind of I think the most interesting part is we had a plan that consisted of, hey, we're going to do a $10,000 to $12,000 update and sell. And then kind of tell the people actually what really happened the second you walked in the house.
Yes, happy to share about this. It was quite the experience for sure. And we're going to have to do a full episode on the remodel, the flips, and how anyone can go about this. What we can share is once we started working on this property, we discovered quickly that full remodel was needed, the bathrooms, the kitchen. We started finding pieces where me, as the listing agent, I said, I cannot list this property as is, Joshua. We're only going to get investor offers, and we're going to lose a lot more. And we started this big journey of a remodel. We ended up having to lease that property out because the market took a downturn in the summer of last year, and now this property is rented out. We're so thankful for that. The tenants are actually considering purchasing that property, but we will come back to this very topic. I'd love to leave the audience as well with inspiration as to how to get started. Someone like myself moved from Fortaleza, Brazil, to Boston, Massachusetts, with no English, with a degree in agronomy, agriculture, engineering, and $150 in my pocket that my dad could give it to me. My dad never finished high school. He had no skills, knowledge to share with me about saving money, and I had to learn the hard way. As I was sharing with that first job, a master's degree in marketing, and yet I was making $14 an hour on a farm. And so quickly learned the value of living in the US and bringing value to your day-to-day and having to learn to save money on my own. I went through a lot. I had sickness along the way. At some point, I even had to declare a bankruptcy before my first marriage because I had made a lot of wrong decisions and had credit card debt. And what I would like to leave the audience is with inspiration that if I could do it, if we could do it together with God's blessings, anyone can do it. And we are here for you. We can't wait to hear from you. Get in contact with us. Our links will have everything you need, our phone number, website, email, Instagram, and we can't wait to be in touch with you and share more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you went through a really amazing journey to get to this place. I think, similarly, it's certainly not been all roses. I think it's important to know that after I executed the flips early on, I basically got to a point where I couldn't buy food for my son, which was very, very difficult. So I was on the brink of bankruptcy. My power was getting shut off, and I told myself that I would never be in this place ever again. I think it's important to, when your desire is greater than your fear, you'll do lots of stuff. And so that happened early on before we were together, but it really changed the trajectory of my life, sitting deeply rooted in my belief that God had a better way, and that, I tell my son, who's 21 now, that, hunger is a great motivator. But I really think that when your desire is greater than your fear, you can do a lot of things.
Yes.
So I think that's important.
Definitely. And then I couldn't finish this session too without giving credit after God to one of my mentors who I could never meet because he's no longer with us, and is Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn has shaped and changed my life. His teachings go beyond comprehension for me, in a sense of, if you listen to Personal Development by Jim Rohn, it will impact your life in a big way. He says, work more on yourself than you work on your job. Work more on yourself than you work on your job. And that was the very beginning, in that crisis of 2008, when I didn't have a job and I actually had to be a caregiver for a living, with a master's degree, living in Massachusetts. And I cared for a gentleman who used to be the head of one of the graduate schools, mechanical engineering department at MIT. And my job was to be a caregiver for someone with Alzheimer's. And so when we take that step of working on ourselves, it will pay off big time.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think we constantly working to better your education and better your skills is always going to yield rewards. And it's also something that can never be taken away from you. So I think it's really important to continue to work on your capabilities and skills so that you can reapply those and be better the next time. Well, I mean, I think also an interesting part, transitioning from that, what do you think about having a business with your husband?
I'm incredibly blessed that God has given me such a gifted husband such as yourself, we have found that our skills are complementary to each other and we make an incredible team. And that's what I encourage people is to seek each other's strengths and then let each other play that role, such as I'm the one marketing the property, taking pictures, coordinating with all the video team to make that property really stand out, making sure that the cleaning is up to par and all the standards of the property. And in fact, that's one of the secrets to our homes, that they rent so quickly because the standards are so high. And when it comes to you all will see as we go along these series of podcasts, the economic skills that Joshua brings to the table and all the math. He has developed spreadsheets and calculations and formulas. We have our own method for evaluating properties, and he is the master behind all that. So when you hire me as your real estate agent, you get the two of us working for you, finding those investment properties for you, and ensuring you are making a wonderful decision. Our contact links are here below. Send us a message, give us a call or a text. We're always available to serve you.
Great. I think that, I think that on the other side, the most interesting part, working with a husband and wife team is, I think, something that a lot of people, if we could tell a story outside of real estate, that this would be probably the most interesting story that anybody gets to hear. Just the simple things of finding boundaries in your own house and places where we do business versus we're husband and wife. Those are the things that make the difference. I think it's really critical, if not just for if you own a real estate business, but if you own any business together, that how do you maintain, as Raquel mentioned, I operate more as our CFO of our businesses, and that's not always a great conversation when the budget's $20,000 and we're at $55,000. So you can certainly take. You have to be careful when you're dealing with your spouse in your business to have honest conversations and courageous conversations, but also understand that they're your spouse and how do you manage that relationship, the emotional relationship there. So I'm sure that as we evolve this, some real-time examples will come, but we would hope to share that with everyone, because I think that beyond buying real estate and beyond doing anything, if having a family is hard, being a husband and wife is difficult. We rely heavily on our faith and those pieces in that, but overall, add the business in there and the stresses that come with that, and for all those of you who have children, those types of things, those make a huge difference. So being able to properly balance that and everything that's going on and still maintain safety and security is really critical. So I think we will continue to talk about that in different facets, especially in decision making, when we come at things in such a different way. That is, when you're talking about risking hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, those are not trivial conversations. So.
Definitely, yes. It certainly has created a better structure for our marriage in a way where we separate those types of conversations, such as having date nights and not talking about business is one of the ways we implemented for us to have a healthier relationship.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Well, thank you so much, Joshua, for your time today. This was wonderful. We're off to a great start here, bringing information to our audience.
Well, thank you so much for watching. We're so grateful that you're here with us. Our real intention here is to serve people. At the end of the day, whether that's in running the business or buying a first house or looking at investment property or handling tenants or anything in between, or just coming to Austin and finding what's a good place to have dinner. We look forward to speaking with you. Please leave comments in the section below, and we'll look for those, and we'll go through every one of them, and then we can guide the next episodes to make sure we answer all of your questions. Thank you so much. We're so grateful that you're here, and we look forward to working with you and seeing you next time.
I want to thank you for watching. We can't wait to see you on the very next episode of the JNR Real podcast, and have a very blessed time.